Welcome to today's webinar, Get the Know-How on Luxury Travel. I'm Paloma Villaverde del Rico, Editor-in-Chief of Recommend Magazine and moderator of this webinar. This webinar has been made possible by Recommend, as well as the following partners: Iberostar Hotels and Resorts and Seabourn. This webinar is a complement to the Luxury Travel Trends Survey that was conducted on recommend.com, as well as a Luxury Travel Trends Report, which starting today is available for download from the handout section of the webinar. During this conversation with our panelists, we'll speak about luxury travel trends and how COVID-19 has impacted what travelers are seeking when it comes to luxury travel. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. During the presentation, feel free to enter your questions in the question box. We'll gather them together and hold a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And don't worry if you miss something, this webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link via email to access the recording at your leisure. A link to the Luxury Travel Trends Report will also be included in the follow-up email. And one lucky attendee will win Samsung Level U wireless headphones valued at $99. You must stay on for the duration of the webinar in order to qualify. So let's start this webinar by having the panelists introduce themselves. Mary, want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Mary Head. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been in the travel business my entire life since college, working with the airlines, then with the cruise lines directly, and now with my own travel business for 11 years with Avoya Travel American Express. So my passion is travel.
Thank you, Mary. And Shauna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shauna Huffman Owen, and I'm coming to you from downtown Chicago, Illinois. I am the owner and CEO of Huffman Travel, which is based here in Chicago, as well as a few offices in other parts of the country. And this is my second career, actually. And however, I wasn't as smart as Mary to figure it out early on, and I can say that it is the best career, and I'm so passionate about it, and I love to travel.
Awesome, thank you, Shauna. And Kirsten?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Peterson, and I'm with Peterson Travel Group. I'm also in the Chicago area, and I've been in the industry for about 12 years. I started my own agency about 3 years ago. We focus on a lot of international travel, mostly luxury, high-end, and I also love to travel. It's my passion, so it's my dream job.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kirsten. So before we begin asking all the questions about luxury travel, I wanted Shauna to talk a little bit about her trip. She just got here this morning back to Chicago from Hawaii. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience, the flights, the island stay, and all that fun stuff?
I'd love to. So this was such an exciting 6 days for me because I had not taken a flight longer probably than 2.5 hours since the beginning of March. I certainly hadn't gone anywhere as exotic as Hawaii. And so I had that feeling like a little kid again. I literally was thinking, this is so exciting to go on a big trip to go to Hawaii. And it was, I have to say, it was everything that I hoped it would be. It was probably the lead up to it was the hardest part of it. It was really hard to figure out what I needed to travel to get into Hawaii, because Hawaii just opened its borders to visitors without a 14-day quarantine as of October 15th, and I traveled on October 21st. So I didn't give myself a lot of time for Hawaii to figure it out, and I'll tell you, they're still figuring it out. But I did it, and not without some anxiety. Hawaii requires that you have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of arriving, which I think many places are requiring that now. But the trick is that about 5 days before my travel, Hawaii announced that you could only receive the COVID test from one of their trusted partners, which was about 8 or 10 companies that they listed on their website. And that became tricky because a lot of those just weren't available to me where I lived. So I ended up doing a mail order. A company called Vault.com, which offers a mail order saliva test, which at that point they were accepting. And I sent it away on Monday to get it back. They said by Tuesday, and I received notice Tuesday at 11:30 at night that my COVID test was negative. The woman I was traveling with, she received hers at 6:30 in the morning the day we were leaving, and our flight left at 9:30 in the morning. So that was anxiety, evoking, as you can imagine. But once we got over that and we received our negative test, we filled out the paperwork to be accepted into Hawaii. I have to say the flight itself was very simple. The airport, I would say, was moderately busy, and at O'Hare, we flew United. We were on a nonstop flight to Honolulu. We were in the front of the plane, and every seat was full. In the back of the plane, I'd say it was very, very empty, maybe 20% full, if that. But the flight attendants were, very following very strict protocol. There was very little service. Not that service is anything we really talk about in luxury travel on airlines anyway, but I'd say expectations should be quite low. But they were very strict to make sure people kept their masks on the entire flight. They provided a lot of hand sanitizers, etc. And once we arrived in Hawaii, it was very quiet. The Honolulu airport was very quiet, very few flights arriving. I think we will see that increase, hopefully, as travelers begin going there, certainly as the weather gets colder here. And then I spent my time at the new Four Seasons Sensei Wellness Retreat, which was absolutely magnificent. It was incredible. If anybody has any interest in it, don't think twice, go, because it's in a league of its own in terms of true wellness and luxury combined. And I found all the people working at the resorts to be extremely positive and happy we were there, and grateful that we were supporting the economy. So all things being said, I feel like I got an injection of energy by taking the trip, and by being in a different environment. And I truly believe that a change in scenery is good for the soul. And certainly if you go to a beautiful place, that's even better.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. That sounds like an amazing experience. And I have a question. Were they very strict when you got to the Hawaii airport in terms of asking for the test results and the forms? What was that like?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Very strict. In fact, we were met by the National Guard as we deplaned in Honolulu.
Oh, wow.
There were a line of National Guard in total Army fatigue waiting to direct us. And then there was a desk where we had to show our paper, our negative test. We had to show the Hawaii form that we were required to fill out. And then we had to show our flight information. So they were there were no nonsense. It was very professional, very businesslike.
And for travel to Hawaii, it's not just certain states that have to show this negative COVID. It's all the states, correct? Everyone?
All states. Okay. And I've been told that it's changed, that those trusted partners and the type of test they require have changed even since I did it a week ago. Oh, wow. So my message to everyone is go to the hawaii.com, /COVID, whatever that is, website, and they're keeping that very up to date. That's the most up to date information you can find.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shauna. That's great information. So let's jump right into some of the questions that I had prepared. And the first one is, what is your current state of mind when it comes to the travel industry? And I know Kirsten wanted to respond to this question.
Well, actually I did. Thank you, Paloma. So I actually am feeling very positive and optimistic about the future. I think that people really want to travel, and we're seeing a lot of pent-up demand right now. I think the travel industry has had a lot of ups and downs, and certainly this is probably the worst we've seen. But we've kind of taken this time to pause and look inside our company and to do things to make us more efficient, more effective, creating templates, doing things on social media, and doing just things kind of internally so that we're ready, because I do think that come hopefully not too long from now, we're going to see this huge resurgence and people are going to be wanting to travel. And I think the agents and the agencies that are taking this time to kind of gear up and do things for their business so that they're ready to meet that demand will really be successful going forward. So, I do think that the demand is there and it will be, better than ever once things become, safer to travel. So I'm feeling very optimistic.
And Mary, are you feeling just as optimistic, or what are your thoughts?
I am feeling optimistic. I had an interesting situation just the other day where I had a doctor's checkup and he told me about all of his friends who've already retired and they're just sitting on the sidelines. Wanted to hand out my business cards to him to tell him that, give me a call, but there's just so many people, I think, that are sitting with their financials already targeted for their travel and they can't go and they have their health right now. And I just think as soon as those ships get in the water and can prove through a sailing or two that they can manage everything well, that they're going to be ready. I think next year, once they sail, it's going to be a banner year for us.
Yeah, I was on the Sea Trade conference a couple of weeks ago, and that was the cruise line executives are pretty optimistic, in terms of sailings for 2021, and they're looking at the cruise lines that are already sailing in Europe, and those have been pretty successful up to now, at least. And so they had, cautiously optimistic, obviously. And
Right.
Shauna? Shauna, do you think that the travelers are going to be more demanding now once this, next year starts rolling around in terms of what they're seeking?
So I think travelers are going to be asking for different things, and I think luxury is going to be defined differently than it was before. So I think people are going to be, on one hand, more flexible and understanding of situations. I mean, there's so much that's out of our control that in our day-to-day life, and I think that's going to extend into travelers' experiences when they travel. However, I think the thing that they're going to be demanding more from us as an industry is flexibility, and I think that this has really given our suppliers a lot of time to think about their terms and how they interact and what they expect from consumers. And I think that we all spent, I'm sure Mary and Kristen can agree with me, we spent hundreds of hours undoing and redoing trips last spring. Yes. And whatever those terms and policies were that the suppliers had with our clients, they kind of went out the window because they didn't, most of them said, well, that doesn't apply right now because we're in COVID and we're just all trying to do the right thing for people. And I think that, that's what I feel people are going to expect going forward. They're not going to really have tolerance for non-refundable deposits and cancel terms that are non-refundable 3 and 6 months in advance. I think that on that hand, they're going to be more demanding. I also think that in the experience of the hotel and the service and the customer service, I think they might be a little more forgiving, actually.
Yeah, no, for certain, especially obviously if you want to jump on a plane or something and maybe they said, okay, this flight isn't going to be running and people are going to be much more flexible for that. Yes, Mary?
Yeah, I wanted to interject also that I think we all learned a lot about our suppliers and our relationships with those suppliers and how critical that is to have that close relationship, because in my situation, a lot of my high-end clients were very well protected because of my relationship and just trying to get their money back and get refunds and things like that. Going forward, I'm seeing and being a little more selective of who I want to work with in, especially with regard to the airlines. I'm waiting on the airlines to really give more flexibility. People, I think, would be booking now for their trips going forward, but just to release a change fee, I don't think is enough. I think they need to stop holding people's money. Southwest has been very successful in saying, just take these credits and move them forward and do different things. So I'm looking at my suppliers really carefully. of who I'll
Yeah,
work with going forward. I've learned a lot.
yeah, that's what I've heard from a lot of the travel advisors. The rules have certainly changed,
Mhm.
and it's also everybody has realized how utterly important also travel advisors are for travel industry to succeed, to truly
Sure.
succeed. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So Mary, do you want to tell us about some of the lessons learned due to the crisis at hand?
Number one, document everything. I mean, I've known this since, day one starting the business, but do we always take that minute? You talk to the cruise lines during the day and they're like, oh, can you wait just a minute? I've got to put my notes in. Well, if you're not taking the time to do that and you're trying to go back and chase down these future cruise credits and when were they going to expire, or what did the people say they were going to give back, or, how much money are we refunding people? It's really challenging right now to follow all that if you didn't put it in your records. So that was my key takeaway, is I will always do that and make sure, not that I didn't do it before, but I probably wasn't as detailed as I am now with who I spoke to and the amounts of money and that kind of thing. And then the other thing is, if you can do it in writing, do it in writing. Either get it from the supplier in writing and look over the invoice before you move forward, or the other thing I learned too is do it in writing with your client, because if they come back later and say, well, wait a minute, you told me this, and you can go back to that email thread and just say, this is what had happened. So you have to really protect yourself.
Oh, it's interesting. And Kirsten?
So another thing that I think is important is going forward, kind of plan for the worst, hope for the best. So, making sure that there's an easy out for your clients, making sure that you can, going forward, cancel easily, get money back, just kind of having that mindset going in that it's not going to, that you can easily get your client out of his booking or change the booking with as little, pain to them and to yourself as possible. And then another thing that I think is critical is we've learned that fees are important. So it's important to, we've always charged them, but not all agents do charge, non-refundable planning fees at the beginning, so that even though you're not, if they cancel their trip, you're not getting that same commission necessarily. You're at least recouping some fees from it, and something for your time.
Excellent. And Shauna, any lessons learned that might differ or be the same?
Yeah, well, those are great points. And I think I would just only add the fact that we really do need to know who we're working with. So there's a lot of suppliers out there, and we all, work with many people on our team. And I think that it's really important to know your supplier and to know to have a relationship with them, because again, when things are going like they have been the last 7 months, it really, your relationship is the thing that takes you through and makes the difference for ultimately for our clients.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Relationships, right? Yeah. So what does luxury travel mean in today's new travel landscape, Mary?
I love that question, because I think it's become a complete oxymoron. Luxury doesn't mean what we used to have it mean. We're not talking about a lot of maid service coming in the room constantly. We're going to have linens dropped off, and if you don't want linens, you put the little flag out or something to that effect. I think they'll be maintaining more of the public spaces rather than just the clients aren't going to want them in the room, in terms of that. I think the luxury buffets are gone by the wayside. I think it's going to be more about food service at the table, and just, it's going to be more, even the concierge rooms, I don't think will be able to operate the way they were. Maybe you'll go there to get some advice on an excursion, but you won't have a spread of coffees and teas and Danish and all that. So I think people's expectations are going to be very much lowered in the luxury. They're still going to expect some of the nice entertainment and, your bar service and things like that. But I think that they are definitely going to drop their standards as far as what they expect on a cruise once you get on board a ship.
Who else would like? Shauna?
I agree. I've been saying to my team, like luxury used to mean thread count and, you know, number of food services and things like that. And now I think it means customization, right? You're asking, how many times are you cleaning my room? Are you coming into my room? Do I want you to come into my room, or do I want you to drop off the housekeeping supplies outside my door? We had a team outing to the peninsula, Chicago last week, and it was so fascinating because we went around with the housekeeping staff and we learned just in fact what they do differently. And they have really doubled the amount of time that it takes to clean a room. And I don't think that that's I think that's very common in the high-end hotel space. And one thing I found so interesting is when we checked in, they said to us, we are offering in-room housekeeping on request. So we are happy to turn down and clean your room 3 times a day, which is our standard. We can do it 2 times, we can do it none at all, we can drop off. What would you like? And I think that's luxury. It's because people all have varying degrees of comfort in terms of traveling. And so I think luxury is asking each individual person, what makes you comfortable and how can we do that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And Kirsten?
You know, I also think, aside from that, that we may see more of an interest, or I've already been seeing more of an interest in boutique properties, you know, smaller hotels and villas, and also cities that aren't quite as populated. You know, instead of going to Rome or Paris, you know, going to some of the secondary cities, I think may kind of be popular. People are going to want to be a little bit more remote and away from crowds. I think we're going to see even more of an emphasis on private experiences, really authentic, you know, private experiences. So I think people are also going to be willing to pay for those kinds of things.
Yeah, I just finished 2 pieces actually where a lot of the talk are those private experiences, the people also, you know, just traveling in bubbles, the smaller groups and the boutique hotels, and also a lot of you know, in the United Kingdom, for instance, you know, a lot of the walking paths are now going to be huge, you know, because people just want to be in their little group and being outdoors too. I heard that wellness is going to be huge, even bigger. It was already getting big, and now it's going to be an even bigger product to sell, definitely. And what do you guys think of, do you think the luxury traveler is going to be one of the ones leading the pack when it comes to traveling again? Who would like to respond to that? Okay, Mary?
I think they will. I think they will. I think they're just such seasoned travelers. They, like you were saying, they're going to understand ahead of time that, you know, no, I no longer want to be on a big ship and whatever they classify as a big ship, whether it becomes, you know, 250 people or if 1,000's okay, or do they want that boutique property like Kirsten was saying? But I don't think, yeah, I think they're just going to be ready to go, and they're going to protect themselves and understand that the precautions will be there when they arrive.
And Shauna?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the luxury traveler is desperate to go away. And, you know, I think all of us have been helping people do what they can right now. And I think the open-mindedness and the willingness to try something that maybe otherwise would not have seemed, I know, may not have gotten to the top of their bucket list has been really fun to help people do. And then I think that, you know, so often we say you have to go far afield to really get adventure and to expand your mind. And we have so much at our fingertips here in the United States that I think people have been really pleasantly surprised with the travel that they've been able to do locally.
Definitely. Kirsten?
Well, and also the luxury traveler has the income, the disposable income, you know, to spend on travel. So that will really help too. I think that they'll be leading the pack.
Yeah, I have a tour operator, the president of a tour operating company that I interviewed. He said travel is in their DNA. So they're just going to have, you know, they just have to travel. They can't, you know, be without traveling, you know. So as soon as, you know, the places start opening up, you know. Okay, so my next question is, so how long before your luxury clients start traveling again due to the impact of COVID-19? What are you seeing in your bookings and all that?
I still have bookings for February, and
Oh,
believe it
wow.
or not, they're to Asia, and they're holding on, and they are, flying business class or first class, and they're still going. And again, that's that component that just has that money set aside for travel. And if you're willing to take them and put them on that smaller ship, they're ready to go. So I haven't had any hesitation. There's 8 of them. And that's going to be my first trip heading out is February. So I'm just fingers crossed.
Definitely. Who else wanted to respond?
I
Yeah,
think
Kirsten?
it depends, I think, on the traveler. I think that, a lot of travelers are afraid right now. I think some are not afraid at all, and they just want to know where they can go. I think there's going to be a bulk of them that are not going to do anything until there's a vaccine. I think that's probably where we're going to have to be when we see everything come back. But, right now I've got some clients going to Mexico and definitely domestic. And I've got trips planned for February and, a lot for next summer. So hoping that we'll have everything back in place then. But I think it really just depends on each person. Everyone has a different comfort level.
Yeah, most certainly, yes, definitely. And Shauna, did you have anything to add?
So we've seen an interesting phenomenon happen, which is summer was, busy on a COVID level, busy in terms of people taking road trips and wanting to do domestic things. And then I felt like August sort of quieted down for a number of reasons. And then mid to late September, we started seeing more and more requests from families wanting to go away for Columbus Day weekend or Thanksgiving or Christmas, like the logical holidays that always drive our demand. But and I think it's because kids are back in school in one way or another, even if it's online, which many of our kids are remote. There's more of a structure now. And whereas like the beginning, I feel like we've talked to a lot of people about this. The beginning of COVID, people were we were all like deer in the headlights. We didn't know how long it was going to last. We weren't sure what was going to happen. And that led us into summer. And now that we're like, here we are again, still in it. It's been really interesting to see how people are seeing, not everyone obviously, but we've seen a number of people really saying, oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to that holiday like I always have. Even though it's a COVID holiday, I'm going to maybe step out and do something that I wouldn't have thought I would have done 3 months ago. So we are seeing people want to congregate around traveling during the holidays, which we weren't really sure if we'd see or not.
Yeah, no, for certain. Yeah, people weren't too sure about the holidays. And then going back to Kristen when she mentioned the summer, that's what I've been hearing. I heard it a lot also at Sea Trade, that some people think that the Alaska season is going to be the springboard. And I know you sell a lot of cruise, Mary. Are you hearing that also?
I am. As a matter of fact, I talked to a client yesterday that may switch from all the way Paris and Normandy to now, oh, well, maybe I'll just do, Alaska or Canada, New England or something like that. So I think we have to be prepared for offering alternatives and not just losing the business. I think that trend is probably what we'll see.
Are you
Yeah, staying flexible, I think. Staying
Yeah.
flexible and able to adapt and change is going to be really key going forward.
Yeah. And has anyone, any of your clients asked you about those, the work and school stations, where they stay at a hotel? Because a lot of the hotels, I'm sure you've noticed, are offering packages since everybody's remote that they go to the hotel. Have you seen any keen interest in that, or not necessarily? That's a little too much for them because that's not just a vacation.
Yeah, I have not seen clients. I've seen a lot of those ads for things like that, and I think it seems great, but I personally have not seen a lot of interest in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't either.
Yeah, seems like a great marketing initiative. I love the concept. I think our clients who are more apt to go somewhere so their kids can work and they can work and their kids can go to school are leaning more towards private residences, I think.
Yeah. All right. So what is currently stopping your clients from traveling? I know we've touched a little bit on it, and I know we were speaking before the webinar itself. Is it concern over COVID-19, over their health, or is it the travel restrictions? What is it that's more impeding them from traveling, getting even on a plane? Who wants to take that one? Kirsten? Yeah.
I think, again, it just kind of varies depending on the client. I think some people are afraid of getting COVID. Some people don't want to leave their house. And then you've got some people that aren't afraid at all, but they're afraid they're going to get stuck somewhere. And that's probably a big thing that I hear is clients are saying, you know, I don't care, I'll go wherever, but I don't want to be stuck there. I've got to get back to work. I've got to get back to whatever. So that's.
And Mary, have you seen, since you focus heavily on cruise, have you seen a lot of people going from the larger ships to this, the river cruises? Because the river cruises are in national waters, so if something happens, you know, they can, you know, anchor.
The people that I have changed their trips, I've typically moved them forward to next year on a very similar trip, and a lot of them are river cruisers already. So, but that being said, I think the river cruise market will have a great appeal going forward because of those smaller ships, and that it's going to be so much easier for them to, you know, maintain the conditions on board and keep the shore excursions a little more tightly run so that, you know, people aren't just able to wander off on their own. And that's going to be something carefully looked at, I'm sure, by the cruise lines, because you know, if you're telling people, I have also people that are saying, well, if you're going to tell me I can't get off and walk around by myself and do my own excursion, then, you know, what is my fun of the trip if I don't want to have just a manufactured excursion? But the river cruise lines do such a great job with their excursions, and they already break people down into very small groups because they're looking at people that can have, you know, slower walking mobility other than the fast-paced person, and they're already, you know, looking at that, and they put 8 or 10 people in a group, and the good lines are doing that already. So I think they'll be able to manage it a little more carefully as we sort of ease into this.
And Shauna, what are the concerns from some of your clients? Is it the COVID? Is it just staying you know, getting stuck somewhere?
I think it's, again, very personal. Like as Kristen said, it's both, right? I think we've seen an increase in people chartering private aviation because they're uncomfortable being on small spaces with people, but they're not uncomfortable enough not to leave their home. We have a number of people that we are doing dining for now over Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the requests are all, I only want to eat outdoors. I only want reservations at dining is outdoors. So I think that it's a spectrum. You know, I believe that if you're going to travel, whether it's get in a car or get on a plane, you as the traveler have to take some responsibility right now to know that there are things that could happen that are out of everybody's control. And so I think that's just an expectation that we as advisors who have probably put ourselves out there more than the majority of our clients have during this time, we just need to really communicate that with them so that not to scare them away at all, but just to say, like, you know, we are control freaks. We love to control everything about our clients' experiences, but this is the time when there's a lot that none of us can control. And so we should go with the, you know, with these, you know, with the right expectations in mind, with the right toolkit in our bag, and just be, you know, be prepared that travel has always been an adventure, and some of the, you know, best memories are those that happen when we least expect them to, and this is a time when we can't forget that.
Definitely.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a very good way to put it.
Very
Positive
good.
spin, yeah.
Now, Kirsten, I believe it was you mentioned you have some summer bookings for, I mean, I know all of you have summer bookings, but I think specifically you mentioned, are those beach vacations to Mexico, Caribbean, or are they local, or what type of bookings are they?
So the majority of the summer 2021 bookings that I have are ones that I just pushed from this past summer. Most of them are Europe. I'd probably say most of them are Europe. I do have some new ones. I have some like honeymooners and things like that. And again, it's Europe, Greece, Italy, Croatia, France. Yeah.
And now, are the people who are traveling, obviously in luxury travel, it's the mostly baby boomers who have a lot of disposable income, but are you seeing younger people more willing to travel, baby boomers? Are the baby boomers okay with traveling? What are you guys seeing?
I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that because I think the roadblock that I have seen with the families, the younger families that have children, I guess once they hit the summer where they don't have school schedules that are affected, because schools are now saying if you've traveled out of the country, you need to come back and quarantine. So I think depending on the dates of things like that. And then I've also found that the pricing is still high. And if you're trying to put people on a Disney cruise, a whole family, it's more expensive now than it was last year. So I'm not sure how we're going up against that, but that's what the cruise lines want to do right now.
And anyone else seeing that? Any younger clients, or is it pretty much the same? Yep.
I think Mary's point on the sort of residual impact on a family of traveling is one of the hardest things for us all to fight against in terms of traveling. So not only is it that children have to, if they travel internationally, they have to quarantine perhaps for 14 days, but even intrastate. I mean, none of us live in New York, but New York State right now, if you practically go to, I don't know, 2/3 of the states in the United States, you're required to come back and quarantine for 14 days. That means the kids have to quarantine, they can't go to school. That means the parents, if they go to work, can't go to work and have to quarantine. I mean, it's just this ripple effect, which is really difficult to justify to take a trip, I think. So I think that this whole intra-state, intra-border, cross-border, all these rules and regulations are really proving challenging for us.
And they change.
And they change by the minute, right?
Yeah. So where do you, speaking of change, where do you guys access to keep up with all the changes? What tools are you using? Who wants to take that one?
That's so hard. I think the travel.gov website for every country is updated pretty regularly. The states are really tricky because each states have regulations, but then counties have different regulations. Someone was just asking us if there's a quarantine in Cook County when you come back from St. Lucia. It's like, I mean, there's no one standard place to find that information. So yeah, it's really tough.
And I think also leaning on our suppliers have a lot of that information too. But like we said before, it changes. So it's hard. You have to really stay on top of it because you could book something for someone and then when they're traveling, it could change and all of a sudden they're gonna have to quarantine when they get back. So I think just having that expectation out there, letting them know that this may happen is important too.
Yeah, and it happened a lot with the Caribbean islands. They had opened and they would shut down again, unfortunately, and then they reopened. So that was also tricky because so many people were traveling to the Caribbean, during the summer. Mm-hmm. Mary, this one's for you. How has COVID changed luxury cruising? What are the expectations?
I think overall, and for me personally, it's the timeline of bookings. I'm so used to booking things and looking at like a year out or a year and a half out, and people are willing to put the money down and go forward and plan their schedules so far in advance. And I had to laugh because Regent kept reaching out the other day and like 2023 is open, and I'm like, I just can't go there with clients, nor can they. And I think if anything, they're all going to look at trips that they can do in 3 months or 6 months. So we're going to sell these ships late. I just truly believe that. So I don't know about the resorts because I don't do resorts very often, but I do think initially, and I don't know, I'd love to have everyone's opinion on this, is I think my timeline is going to be, I better be ready to answer the phone you know, closer in bookings and be able to react immediately. So.
Kirsten, you're nodding your head.
Oh, I was in agreement. Yeah, I think even with resorts, cruises and resorts, I think we're just seeing less lead time. We're going to have to be ready to go, you know, within a couple weeks, sometimes even people are going to be ready to book. So I just think lower or shorter lead times is going to be the norm for a while.
And shorter lead times were already starting to happen even before COVID. So this is even, you know, do you think that's going to become the norm for a while, or just how people are going to sometimes just travel moving forward? Once we get past this COVID, cross our fingers.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get back on some sort of normalcy, I'm thinking. But I think it's going to be just very up in the air, and we're going to have to be ready to adapt and just go with wherever the business is and what, you know, for a while.
And that leads me to another question. How many of the changes that have taken place because of COVID do you think will now be long-term and will just become part of the norm, even when we're in a post-COVID world? Does anybody want to take that one? Yeah,
I'll speak to that. I'm interested to see, like Shauna was saying, for her trip to Hawaii, she got there and she has the National Guard to deal with, and she has to have all of her paperwork in order. And I'll be interested to see if that doesn't become a permanent thing moving forward, where you used to have just your passport in your back pocket, but now you're going to need some type of health documentation. And what is going to become our responsibility to make sure that people travel with that? You know, it's almost going to be like a visa situation where, okay, yeah, you need your passport, but this country requires a visa. So I think we're going to have clear guidelines and be protective of our agencies and our responsibility, and also giving the information to clients and allowing them to also be somewhat responsible to look these things up.
And Kirsten, you had something to say?
No, just more of the same. I think that, well, I guess, you know, I do think that all the cleanliness and safety protocols that are in place now are probably going to be something going forward that we're going to be seeing. I think even hopefully after COVID is over and people all have their vaccines or whatever, I think people just have an increased awareness of the fact that you can get ill, you know, traveling and just wherever. So I think that we are going to see people being more concerned with, you know, touch points being sanitized and, you know, cleanliness and things like that.
Yeah,
I think that's part of our
what I
generation now.
Yeah, definitely. So I have some questions from the people listening in, and the first one is for Shauna, and it's about your trip to Hawaii. And they want to know if you were able to go to the beach and were restaurants and sightseeing places open, like Pearl Harbor, for example.
Right. Great question. So yes, I went to the beach. I swam in the ocean. It was amazing. The beaches are all, I think this is true, and all the islands public in Hawaii, so they were open. Restaurants were open where I was, and I don't know about Pearl Harbor. Sightseeing was, I went on a helicopter excursion, so I mean the sightseeing was happening, but I will tell you, I was very early days. I mean, the helicopter driver said we were the first ones he'd had since COVID. So given the fact I was there 1 week after they pretty much open to outsiders, I think that's normal. They all, a lot of the hotels were not open yet. So on Maui, most of the luxury hotels are opening November 1st. Same for the Big Island. So I think, you know, you need to check opening, but I think that from my research that I did prior to my trip, it looked as though by the second week in November, most everything would be open in Hawaii. I think they're staging it to try to, you know, not open too soon before too many people will come, to obviously mitigate costs and expenses of reopening.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. So the next question is, this advisor says that they too are optimistic, and they want to know what you are saying to your clients to motivate and inspire travel. Who would like to be the first one to respond to that? So anyone?
Well, I think the best way you can inspire and motivate travel is to show people that you travel, and that they can call you to ask you about your personal experience.
Yep, that's a good one. And Kirsten, you had wanted to say something?
I think that's great. And but other than that, if you're not traveling, I think just putting it out there in social media, your newsletter, or however you communicate with your client, sending out inspirational posts, just keeping them dreaming. It's changing the tone of your communication so it's not salesy, just very supportive and inspirational.
I'm sure you guys have been very busy on social media during all of this time. And have you learned any new tricks during this that you've been using on social media? Any tips you can give the people listening in? Or done anything fun on your social media? Any fun projects? Anybody want to take? No? We had one writer who wrote a column for us regarding social media, and they have been using content that they create. They use one content and then they do it on their different platforms, and they use it throughout the month. And they ask their clients different things. What do you want to hear about? I know that people have been doing a lot more FaceTime as well before pre-COVID. Yeah, Shauna?
I just remembered, so I can't take credit for this because this is not social media is not my area of expertise, but we have a great marketing manager, and he creates these Instagram trivias for different countries. So once a week, we'll put on a Huffman travel trivia on South America, on Ireland, whatever, with a number of questions that then people respond to. And so that's been really fun and well received.
That's great. I might steal your idea and tell my social media manager. Yeah.
I think anything interactive is always good. If there's a survey you can put out to your clients about things, and getting them to kind of interact with you on social media is always nice.
Yeah, definitely engage them, keep them engaged, right? That's the main thing. Yeah, during all this downtime. So, so they are asking, the next question is, where did they get their COVID testing done to get it back so quickly? I guess this question is for you, Shauna. I know it was one of the ones that Hawaii had requested.
Right. So I think that's one of the most challenging things, right? So for those of us, I think, that live in major metropolitan areas, the key is to ask if the testing center has their own labs, because I think if you have your own lab, you're not sending it away, you're more apt to get it back quickly. I know here in Chicago, Northwestern Hospital gets it back within 48 hours, which is great. They weren't an approved supplier for Hawaii, so I had to do a mail order one, but there are a couple mail order companies that will overnight you a test. You administer the test yourself, you put it in a bag, you overnight it back, and they guarantee, I think, 48 to 72 hours or something. But I mean, that's one of the hardest things to figure out, is how do you get your test back in the appropriate amount of time for you to get on the airplane and get to where you're going. It's like a huge math equation.
Yeah, exactly. Because you need to get it done and then make sure that you get the test, and then it has to be the 72-hour window so that they know it's not, oh, you didn't do it on Monday and you could have gotten sick back then. Yep.
I think I'd heard that CVS was partnering with Hawaiian Airlines maybe, but I think CVS is like a big company that is doing a lot of the Hawaii pre-approved tests. So
they are, you're right, Kristen, they were, but I couldn't get an appointment with them in my time frame that was necessary. So anyway, I feel a little overwhelmed.
So the next question from the audience, let me see. Okay, hold on one second. Oh, I guess this is for Shauna. And they're asking, the restaurants and bars were open for service, or how was it just takeout?
No, for service, table service. Bars were open, yes. I mean, we weren't standing at the bar, but we were sitting. We went to the bar at the hotel a couple times. We could sit in there. And once you sat down, you didn't need to have your mask on. But if you were up and walking around, you had to have your mask.
Okay. And
no buffets. I think that might be one of those things that sticks. I'm not sure the next time we're ever going to see a buffet.
Yeah, definitely. That's what a lot of the hotels and resorts have been saying. And this might be for you, Mary, because it focuses on cruising, but it's a particular cruise line. So, as an independent travel agency, what is the best way to get aligned with Seabourn in order to sell their ships? Are you a partner? Do you work with Seabourn?
I do work with Seabourn. They're not one of my top companies that I work with or suppliers that I work with, but I'm not sure where they're asking about getting aligned with them. I mean, obviously, you know, once your sales start to build and you're booking a lot, that's where you get your support. But I also always say, I used to be a district sales manager for the cruise line, so always reach out to those people and find out if they're going to be in your town and you could get together with them, or, you know, as events start to happen going forward, get yourself out there to the events that they have, you know, the conferences and things like that, and make sure you meet with them and schedule time with them. It takes time. It just takes time. You know, they're dealing with a lot of people also. And, you know, you want to show that you're very encouraged about travel and selling their product. And then they can give you a lot of tools to help you move forward to build your business. Just, you know, with the sheer fact that, you know, I'd really love to learn more about how I can sell this. But that being said, I guess the other bottom line would be to take their course online. They all offer training on their websites for travel agents. So show the initiative that you at least spent the time to learn the product really well. And now's a great time for us to do that. And then reach out to the sales manager and have some time on the phone with them to let them assist you and give you some real tips on selling their product.
Those are great points. Thank you. The next question is about travel insurance, which has moved way up to the top of the list in this world. And so this person is, I'd be curious what companies the panel likes for Cfar travel insurance. I don't sell travel insurance now, but I'd like to. And for the year ahead, that's the only type I should sell, of course. Haven't started my research, but would love a suggestion or two. Does anybody want to take that one on travel insurance, or what travel insurance are you using, or Mary?
I sell a lot of Allianz, and Allianz has backed me up every time with any claims that come in. And I don't know if Sean or Kirsten is familiar with them. I think explaining to the client now, especially, that some of the cruise line policies can be less expensive, but some of them are offering only secondary policies. So they get into a lot of red tape if you do end up have a claim. You know, now we need to look at, okay, well, what is the coverage with the COVID situation if you become stranded or quarantined or that type of thing? Allianz has had such a forward thought on all of this and protecting people along the way and making changes to accommodate it. So for a little bit more money, you know, to get these better policies that are out there and let the client understand what they're buying instead of just saying, oh, well, that one's $200 less. So.
Does Allianz still offer Cfar? Because I know a lot of travel insurance companies are not offering Cfar anymore.
You know, I'm not sure, Kirsten. I don't know if they're offering Cfar as of right now because of the changes that they've made. So.
And
You mean
Shauna, you had?
Yeah, are you saying cancel for any reason? Is that what you're asking? Yeah,
Yeah, that's what the person asked.
they are. Yes, they are. So I agree. We've been, you know, as happy as you can be with an insurance partner with Allianz, and we think they're very good. And they have backed us up through this pandemic very well. In fact, we just had a call with some of their management about 2 weeks ago, and they are offering cancel for any reason. And they are offering it still at the 75%, maybe it's 80%, don't quote me on that coverage level, but they have changed it that you have to book it at the time of deposit. So you have to get it the same day that your client makes their first deposit. And it also has a limit only of $10,000, up to $10,000 a person of coverage. But that's what we're selling most of now when the trip is inexpensive enough to do that, or there's enough travelers on it to split the cost. The other thing that we are selling almost we're almost requiring people to get it. We can't require, but we're strongly suggesting it, is NetJet evacuation assistance. And so that's an annual policy that's very inexpensive. And they have just added the terms that they will actually, if you have COVID, before they would not transport you, and now they will. So that's a great an additional type of coverage to look into.
That's a good point. And Kirsten, I misunderstood your question because I was thinking you were asking that if they had that protection for COVID reasons. So I know that they've been, you know, it's changed dramatically over time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if they were still, you know, what their qualifications were for that.
And I also, I think Allianz is great. And another one I've used is Travel Safe. They also have a nice Cfar, and I think you have 21 days from date of deposit to purchase that insurance, the Cfar. And then sometimes I think it makes sense to even do the travel insurance through your supplier, depending on the supplier and their policy. You know, I was able to get full commission paid on a lot of my bookings that I had insurance on through the supplier, and then they were also able to get their money back. So I think that is another option.
Excellent. Those are all great points. So we have one last question that we're able to answer before we have to wrap this up. And they are asking, can the travel advisor specify if they collect any deposits ahead of doing research for a client? And if the deposit is refundable or not? Who would like to respond to that? Yeah, Kirsten?
I do. Yeah, so I definitely do. And it depends. So my deposits, if it's just going to be the person wants to go to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico, I'll take a plan to go deposit and I'll apply that towards the cost of the trip. But if I'm putting together an FIT for someone for Europe or New Zealand or whatever, then I charge a planning fee and I charge that right up front. I collect that before I put together an itinerary for them. And it varies depending on the length of the trip and how many travelers and how complicated it is. But.
Excellent. Anybody else? Or because we do have to wrap it up, so we're almost at the end of the webinar. We have a whole bunch of questions. They will be forwarded to the panelists, so you can respond at your leisure if you have a response for some of these participants who have been on the webinar. So we do have a winner for the headphones, and that is Kate Schweiger. So Kate Schweiger is the winner of the Samsung headphones, so congrats. And with that, I want to thank everyone who attended the webinar, and I want to thank Mary, Shauna, and Kirsten for providing your expertise. Thank you for creating a successful webinar. What I think is a successful webinar. You had some amazing points, and it's great. Everybody needs to hear from their colleagues during these unprecedented times. So stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Paloma.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Paloma.
Thank you, Paloma.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.